inside your program is Unity's 5-step prayer process. And I would like to just kind of go over that. For those of you who are in our viewing audience, if you'd like a copy of that, just email us, and I'll be happy to send that to you. I'd like to just go over that because it's a general. Now, it says, it's a 5-step process, but, it's not an exact science, okay? And these 5 steps are not, all of a sudden you get to this place and it cuts off and you're in the next step, okay? Things flow back and forth, okay? But what it means is that these 5 things are part of what we consider the Unity prayer process here. Number 1 is relaxation. And it's number 1 because if we cannot relax mind and body, it's difficult to move to the other steps in this process. And you can use music, gentle music. You can be out in the world of nature and listen to the sounds of the birds, okay? Or if you're near a body of water, listen to the water rushing, a stream, anything like that that helps you to relax. And I think it's really great to meditate out in nature, okay? Back home, I had a park that was pretty much deserted at the time that I went, okay? People were at work and that kind of thing. It was late afternoon, and I found a little spot, okay, that was kind of protected by several bushes there, okay? And I sat myself down right in the middle of the bushes. Now, this is before I was thinking about all the creatures and critters and things like that that were around there. But in this state, it didn't bother me at all because I felt so at one with it. And I just love to go there and sit and listen to sounds. Now, last Sunday, we spoke about sound and meditation, and we used the U sound. And what I love to do with that is I love to hear and listen to the sound of you wherever I am. Everything has that hum to it. Right now I'm listening to the soundboard here. And what I usually do is try to match it to a tone. That's what it sounds like to me, that tone. I purchased my house. One of the things that helped me select the house was the hum of the light fixtures, the fluorescent bulbs in the kitchen. They had a particular B-flat hum, okay, that was very, very soothing to me, okay. I know because I grabbed my keyboard to try and test out what that tone was, and it was B-flat, and it happens to be a favorite note of mine and chord of mine, the B-flat, and what happened was I walked in, and the house was good, house was great, okay, but the sound was fantastic for me. And just with everything else quiet, okay, with the 2 boys, my little knuckleheads, Jordan and Nicholas, my 2 cats, okay, with them not wrestling around and jumping and screaming and hollering and stuff, it was fabulous to just sit and listen to my house. Listen to the sound. It was soothing. It was relaxing. So you might be, see if you can become aware of the sounds in your environment that do relax you, that allow you to kind of take a mental vacation from what might be stressing you. Okay? Sounds are all around us. It's the nature of God. When I was in ministerial school, we used to say God is blue. And the people who didn't know what we were talking about wondered, what do you mean God is blue? Okay. Well, we said that, we're talking about energy here. God is energy. And the hottest flame of fire is the blue-white flame of fire. It's the hottest. It is the part of the flame that has the most energy and vibration. And you'll notice that it usually is, if the flame is getting enough, and this is not for real, but we'll make believe it is, okay, if the flame is getting enough oxygen, okay, that the very tip and corona of that tip will be a blue-white color, okay. If it is being starved of oxygen, it becomes a reddish, orange or a reddish color here. And that's energy, and energy is sound. So everything has sound because everything has energy. And we can go all the way back to Genesis when the world was created and God said, "Let there be." And that said was the spoken word, was the word, which is sound, which is energy. And so we can use sound, energy to help us relax as we move through the prayer meditation process. Usually you close your eyes and let this be a signal that you are turning the focus of your attention from out there to the sounds and the energy within you. Jesus described that as, entering into the inner temple and closing the doors. Okay. And then you move into concentration. Once you can relax yourself enough, it's a kind of natural progression to begin thinking, becoming aware of your thoughts. And in the second stage, you choose a particular line of thought. You might choose a certain quality of God, like God is love, or light, or wisdom, or perfect wholeness, okay? And you might take that one quality and move into it. Think of all the things that it means to you, that it's where it is in your body, and work yourself so that that becomes the focal point in your mind. Okay? And next we move to, try to see these qualities within yourself. Next we move to meditation. And with an open mind and heart, this is the place where you want to feel, okay, now we were just working with our mind and getting the thought in our mind. Now we are working with the heart and getting the feeling of the thought, okay? And moving into what does divine light in me feel like? What does divine wisdom in me feel like? And we join the heart with the mind, the heart and the intellect. And the next stage is the silence. Now, some people equate the meditation stage with the silence, but in Unity, the silence is a very particular stage of this prayer process. And everyone has felt this and experienced it, but may not be aware of it. Sometimes you can get so engrossed in something, you lose track of time. Okay? You lose track of, and this has happened to me when I am sitting at my keyboard and I'm writing music or something, or in awe of the clouds, a formation in the clouds, okay? I love skies. It's one of the reasons I love Kansas, this 180-degree sky, okay? I don't have that kind of view back where I grew up, okay? But I do love sky. I don't like the allergies, but I love sky. And so we actually move, as we move through this process, to a place where we are silent. We've exhausted, say for example, we were working with divine light. We moved into that idea of divine light. We moved into the feeling of what that divine light is in us. And we actually reach a place where we can't go any further. We've reached the end of all we can think about it, of all we can feel about it. And what's left is silence. And that can happen using any particular tool. It can happen with a tone. And later in the meditation, I'm going to use my Tibetan singing bowl. I was hoping to show you a video of a collection of sounds, of a collection of them, but I can't get my hotspot to work this morning, so we're going to have to deal with my little bowl. It's pretty old, okay, but it still sings. And I'm not particularly good at it because I don't use it often, okay, but that will be a lot of fun. In the silence, this is the place where we are most apt to listen to what God might say. And God may speak to us, we may hear a sound, may hear a voice, but it may also come, God speaking as a feeling, joy, bliss, peace, where there was a feeling of chaos or concern. And when you reach this place, you just let yourself be permeated by this silence. Okay? And again, sometimes you will hear God actually speak in words, an idea, or in a feeling that comes to you. And treasure that. And when you come out of it, ask yourself, how are you being directed to use what you have experienced? What insight have you gained? Okay? This is putting feet on our prayers, and this is taking it from this experience and moving it out into our world experience. And then the last phase is giving thanks. You know, Jesus said that whatever we ask for, believing that we receive it, we will receive it. Now, it's a little bit tricky to believe that you've already received something that you can't see you have received. You haven't experienced that you've received it. And that's where giving thanks is really helpful, because giving thanks seals the deal. When you're able to be grateful for receiving what you have yet to receive, it tells the subconscious mind that the gift, the blessing, is here. The gift, the blessing is here. And in truth, it is, because everything that we experience first takes shape and form in the invisible substance, in spirit. So, if we are praying for health, in this particular phase here, we are giving thanks for the wholeness that's in our body, the wholeness that is expressing through our physical body, even if there are appearances and challenges that we have to meet. And our prayers, our blessings and concern service at the end of the service, we use this giving thanks, okay, to affirm the truth of what an individual is going through beyond what the appearance says. So it's a powerful process, and I invite you to, there's a lot of information about it. You look on at www.unity.org and put in a question about the Unity 5-step prayer process. Okay? They elucidate all of these different phases here. I came across a story that I'd like to share with you, because I believe that in sharing this story, we answer the question, why do we pray? What happens when we pray? I read an article by Bernard Beckwith, and on the program, we sang one of the songs that his wife, Ricky wrote. He began a whole new spiritual community called the Agape Ministries. But this is a story that he shared in 2017 in the Daily Word booklet. And he wrote, he's telling the story of how his life was completely changed when he began to listen to this inner voice. He said in his early 20s, he attended Morehouse College, and primarily he went there because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went there. So he figured he would go there as well. But when he graduated from there, he later went to the University of Southern California. And when he was there, he became very involved in groups that were protesting the Vietnam War. And he was quite active in this group until he heard a voice, an interior voice that asked him a question. It said, if you and your group were suddenly to take over the world, would the world be any better tomorrow? And he was stopped by this question. He said he looked at everyone, all the members of the group, and what he realized is that no, the world would not be any better if they took over the world. He said because he saw how much egotism was among his co-workers in this group. And he said he left the meeting and he never returned to it. And a week later, someone from that same meeting shot another man in the group over a power struggle. He experienced awakening from this, an awakening. He said, I was pretty wild at this time in my life. I was sharing marijuana with people, and I was also selling it to other people. And he said, but I didn't know it. I was about to have a spiritual awakening. I would call it a spiritual reckoning as well. He said, in a dream, he saw his own death. He said, when I awoke, I was aware that I was surrounded by some universal presence. And he said, at that time, I didn't call it God, I called it love, beauty. And he said, after his dream, he was determined that he was going to quit selling marijuana. However, he said that there was a drug delivery in his home, and this was the only time that he actually had drugs at his home, at his residence. And he had planned to get rid of the stuff, but before he could, he said he was arrested and taken to jail. His inner voice, he said, told him not to worry because his life of drugs was done. It was over. There were other things being planned for him. And it said that he was going to be going free. So he said during that time, you know, I was inspired to begin reading books on meditation and spirituality. Totally unconcerned about the troubles of this world. And during his court appearance, he said the judge asked the arresting officer, exactly why did you go to raid this man's house? And the officer testified that there was an informant who said that a dope deal was going down. He said, my attorney objected because he felt that was hearsay evidence. The judge called a recess, and the court came back 3 days later, and the judge said, Mr. Beckwith, I have learned that there was no informant. I agree that the evidence was simply hearsay. I have no other choice but to set you free, and I hope to never see you in my courtroom again. And Michael says, you never will, Judge, he said, and he walked away. Now, as he returned home, the wind was blowing with a great velocity. And standing outside his home, he looked up at a house nearby, and he was looking at the weather vane that it was going around, and then it stopped. And it seemed almost stuck, pointing in a direction opposite him. And he thought, this is strange. And it came to him to ask God for a sign. Sometimes Unity folk ask for a sign. Do you know about that? Like some will say, if this is the right decision for me to make, I want to see a zebra. Okay. Now a bus could come by with a picture of a zebra on it. Someone could sing a zebra song on the radio. Who knows? Okay. But the symbol that you ask for comes in some kind of way. Okay. And so he asked for a sign. He said, God, if you are here, if what is happening to me is real, let the weather vane turn around and point at me. And he said, I barely got the words out when that weather vane jumped around and it was pointing directly at me. And he knew something was up. Okay. He said, with the change in the weather vane's direction, he said, I knew that was telling me my life was changing direction. And he said that with tears streaming down his face, he surrendered his life to God right then. He relaxed into God. That new direction, he said, led me to studying Eastern and Western mysticism. And I developed a strong prayer and meditation practice that eventually led me to become a minister and to found my own spiritual community. He said, through affirmative prayer, through contemplation, through meditation, study, fellowship, and service, I became open to the thoughts of God thinking themselves through me. I realized that I became a channel through which God's thoughts was being expressed. Michael was called to the activities that we think of as someone walking a spiritual path. And he said, I began to think affirmatively. He heard about the power of affirmative thinking. And he said, affirmative thinking is different than positive thinking. And I was surprised to see that he gave what the difference is in his article. He said, it's not a matter of positive thinking when you pray, because people can be positive that they're broke. They can be positive that they're sick. They can be positive that they're worthless and that they are not enough. I believe in affirmative thinking, affirmative realization, he said. The very nature, he said, of the universe is one of affirmation. What most people call thinking, he called recycled conditioning of society. Authentic thinking, he says, comes from inspiration, and it comes from basically that process of turning within. That's the source of this inspiration. Now, we can be inspired by seeing someone do something, that kind of thing, but what happens is we see that, we are inspired. It's still the feeling in us is in us. So yes, we can be inspired by things out there, but that inspiration is still coming forth in us. He said the Japanese have a word for thinking, kam-kuru, which means to return to the realm of God. It's kind of like the word repent. Turn around, turn about, okay, rethink something. God is the source of inspiration, and therefore our genuine thoughts, our inspired thinking come from the connection we have with God. Actually, we all live an affirmative life. As Unity teaches us, we get in touch with our real nature, which is the same as the nature of God, the life of God. The thoughts that begin to emerge from our contacting, life-giving, beautifying, and constructive thoughts is that we begin to progress. We begin to grow spiritually and evolve spiritually. We begin unfolding our true Christ self. Our purpose unfolds, and the purpose while we are here on earth is that we continue to unfold, that we become greater expressions of that presence and power within, that here in Unity we call God, but we have many names. We call the Christ within. We sometimes use divine spirit when we refer to God. We stay in a state of inspiration as we let God mind give birth to divine ideas in us and through us. We become the instruments through which new ideas take shape. New ways of living emerge, and progress for ourselves as well as our community and our world takes place. And after a while, we realize that our joy is not so much in the doing, it really is in the being. It really is in our becoming who we truly are. Activating our potential. This is where our real joy, real happiness comes from. As human beings, we have the faculty of the presence of God, that we can think independently of circumstances. We are not subject to fate. We are not prisoners to the negative circumstances we may have to deal with. We're not victims who have to live a life of fear or doubt or worry. There's a sacredness within us all that reveals itself as we invite it to reveal itself through us. And prayer is a way that we do that. Prayer is a way we invite this sacredness to express through us. Our attitude determines our character, and our character determines our destiny, regardless of our past and regardless of present conditions. As we embrace this presence in us, within our souls, and affirm the truth of our being, affirm the truth of others as being. New thoughts allow us to have new lives. How do we make our prayers more effective? Okay. When most people think of prayer, they think of asking God for something. Not so in Unity. Yeah, we may ask for things, But we also have a recognition that there's something beyond the thing. And we also know to say something like this or something better, this or something higher. Because we don't want to limit God's good, okay? Remember Mr. Smith, okay? He was not willing to accept the help of the guy that came by in the boat, the guy that flew over with the helicopter and dropped the rope ladder, because he believed that God would save him in one particular way. And God sent all of these other ways, but he was closed to those. So we don't want to limit God's good in any way. When you find that you are limiting God's good, stop it. Quit it. What does affirming mean? It means asserting the truth. It means validity. It means that some fact of some experience is real. As a noun, it's a statement asserting that the fact is so. And rather than begging or beseeching God, this method of affirmative praying, affirmative living, affirmative thinking has us recognize that God is only too willing to give to us. We don't have to beg and beseech. What we are being asked to do is to say, thank you, I receive. And allow ourselves to do that. Affirmative prayer is the same method that Jesus used. He said, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. That's a huge, huge promise. And it sounds easier than it probably is, okay? When you are struggling with something, to believe that things can be different. Because sometimes you can't see the end, you cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, and all you see is all of this. But remember, this isn't all that you are. Remember that you are not trapped in anything. Remember that there is a presence of power in you. The scripture says, greater than anything outside of you. And in prayer, we tap into this, and we let it tap into us. For example, if you were to pray a traditional prayer, one might say, please God, help me find a job. And by contrast, an affirmative prayer would be something like, I am now guided to my right and perfect employment. See the difference? A big difference. Affirmative prayer reflects the certainty for us that God is more than willing to bless us and to move us through a challenging situation into something better, into something greater. And so, we're going to now experience a tool for engaging in this prayer process. This one is a Tibetan bowl, which I bought years ago, okay, when I was really into it, okay. I thought, I want one of those. And I think it cost almost $100, okay. And it looks like it looked. It's pretty worn and beat up, okay. A lot of the mallets have a leather covering. This did not come with one. And when it has the leather covering, it's easier to get a better sound. But let's see what we have here. The idea, again, we're dealing with sound. Okay? And this sound can represent that presence of God in you, in everything, sound, okay? Now, different bowls have different sounds. And the theory is that each of the sounds align up with one of our 7 major chakras, okay? The colors, there's a different color for each one and different sound. I forget, but I think B flat is the throat chakra. And I don't really know what sound this is because it changes for me, okay? Now, you can play it's best to have it in your hand, okay? Now, I saw online that practitioners had people stretched out on their table, and they had the bowls resting on their body while they made them sing. I thought, that's kind of interesting, okay? It didn't work too well with me when I tried that, but you place it on your palm. And don't caress it, have the fingers out, okay, because this will stifle the sound. There are two ways to play it, and that is, one is tapping. Now, when you are up close to the bowl and you listen, the vibration keeps going. It just now stopped, okay? It's almost at the place where you can't hear that. So it's easier to do this and listen to it, and listen to the sound all the way out, all the way out. It's again like singing Om, where that sound, or you, that sound goes out. I can feel the vibration in my hand here as well. But the other way is to, and this is, you use your entire arm here. I'm not good, okay, but you keep pressure on it. And after a little bit, it will begin to hum. So that's a different sound than this, which is kind of harsh, okay? Unfortunately, my little bowl has little nicks here and stuff, okay?